And I heard something scream so loud that it like echoed and literally vibrated the air. And to me, it sounded demonic.
And I walked maybe another 50 feet and I hear this crashing behind me. Well, here comes that whole herd of elk down off the hill. They go behind me and now they're running along the road on this side. And it's like, well, there goes the elk. And then I focus in on a gorilla. We don't have gorillas. Oh my God, it's Bigfoot. And it's following right along in the path the elk were.
From quiet riverbanks to forgotten logging roads, people have spoken of encounters they cannot explain. A shadow too tall, footsteps too heavy, the unsettling sense of being watched. These are not campfire tales, but testimonies carried through time. Real voices recalling real moments. Stay tuned, because each account brings us closer to the mystery. And in the stillness, one sighting begins the story. Footage courtesy, a flash of beauty. Bigfoot revealed. Have you ever stepped into the forest and felt it breathing around you, alive, aware, watching? For Barb Shoup, the woods near Mount Rainier carried that feeling for years, until one day it revealed something she could never forget. Her connection to the mystery began early. As a child camping near Spirit Lake, she listened to stories of Ape Canyon, the legendary battle between miners and giant, hairy creatures. Those tales stayed with her, and decades later, in the early 90s, Barb settled in the forests around Mount Rainier. What began as hikes and quiet evenings soon turned into something far stranger. One spring morning, she discovered trees snapped at unnatural heights, twisted in ways storms could not explain. Near her cabin, she found a footprint pressed deep into soft ground, broad, long, unmistakably human-shaped, but far too large. It was her first personal sign that the stories might be real.
One day you discover that all of the things that you've been thinking about all those years really do exist. They're really out there and they're not that far away from you. The very first time that I went up the trail that's right here by my cabin, it would have been back in early April of '92. I found a couple of broken trees beside the logging road.
As years passed, the activity grew. Rocks clattered against her roof at night. Structures appeared in the woods, woven from broken branches. Sometimes in the stillness, lights flickered between the trees. Small glowing orbs that darted like fireflies but held an unnatural steadiness. And one evening, an owl's call shifted mid-cry into a guttural growl, sending a chill through her. The turning point came in 2012. Barb was filming during an outing near her cabin when something dark moved through the brush. She raised her camera and saw a black head rise, then a figure bolting on two legs, tall, covered in hair, with arms swinging wide. At the same moment, another witness spotted what looked like a smaller creature, a monkey-like form darting down a nearby tree. Two beings caught in the open.
Not even 50 feet up the trail, and from right here in the creek, I heard an owl that growled, and it was a typical hoo 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 hoo, but it was followed with a very deep growl. And I know birds well enough to know that birds can't growl. And considering I was out there in the woods by myself in the dark, it was a little unsettling. And that was one of the stranger things that happened.
But when Barb reviewed her footage, what she had seen with her own eyes wasn't captured clearly. Instead, the video showed a shimmering distortion, like the outline of a figure cloaked in shifting air. A shape was there, but bent, blurred, as though it had slipped partially out of sight. It was the closest she had come to proof, yet it opened more questions than it answered. From then on, she no longer dismissed the stranger reports, stories of vanishing shapes, cloaked beings, and impossible speed. She had witnessed it herself. The encounter shifted her perspective from simple observation to a search for understanding.
I finished what I was doing for the day and was going to go for a walk up the trail. I probably wasn't even 100 feet up the trail, and it was like somebody just slapped me alongside the head, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's a name, Comey. That was the name. Well, now I finally understood, and I don't know that was...
In the following years, the forest revealed even more. Orbs drifted silently through the trees, sometimes weaving close before vanishing. Voices carried on the wind, too faint to place yet undeniably present. Barb described a sense of energy, waves of tingling that washed over her when the beings were near. And sometimes, she found what felt like gifts, stones arranged in patterns, branches left across her path, subtle signs of communication. To Barb, these encounters were not frightening. They felt intentional, almost gentle, as though the beings were reaching out rather than driving her away. She came to believe that Sasquatch are not monsters, but people of the forest, moving in ways we struggle to comprehend.
The road on this side, and it's like, well, there goes the elk. And then I focus in on a gorilla. We don't have gorillas. Oh my God, it's Bigfoot. And it's following right along in the path the elk were. When I first spotted it, it was facing me. And it's like as soon as I realized what it was is when it turned, and I could see this huge cone. It had this pasty pale skin.
And even now, she is certain they are still there, watching, listening, waiting. Footage courtesy, Mike Wanders. Mike Wanders arrived at Mount Hood National Forest in Oregon, a place woven deeply into the lore of Sasquatch. He came alone, believing solitude might make him less threatening, perhaps even more approachable to whatever roams these woods. At the start of his hike, he noticed something odd, a dark shape wedged between two trees. For a moment, it looked alive. He blinked, and it was gone. Was it a shadow or something waiting just beyond sight? The forest itself felt like a cathedral. Towering moss-draped trees leaned over him, their roots swallowed by damp soil and soft ground. Perfect conditions, he thought, for something heavy to leave a mark. He scanned the moss carefully, hunting for impressions. Game trails twisted through the undergrowth, but faint depressions seemed wider, deeper than deer. He crouched, pressing his boot, size 13, beside one print. They looked nearly the same length, but if something larger had made them, how close had it been?
Like some sort of impression. Here's my boot next to it. I'm size 13. That looks to be roughly the same size. There's more. Super faint. I'm not the best tracker. This is the path here. Probably it's always hard to tell on camera. When you're here in person, you can usually tell. To me, this just looks...
Night crept in. Alone at his fire, Mike remembered what Tyler from the North American Bigfoot Center had warned him. Tyler once fled this very forest at 2 a.m. after hearing growls so violent he couldn't stay another second. That story echoed in Mike's mind as the flames flickered low. The forest grew unnervingly silent. Then, sharp knocks carried through the trees. Researchers say Sasquatch knock back. Mike listened, heart racing. Was he closer than ever? The following morning, he pressed deeper toward Thunder Mountain. Snow covered the trail, and fog swallowed the ridges. He grew disoriented, convinced he had wandered into territory rarely visited in winter. At one point, through the mist, a figure stood motionless between split trees. Black, tall, unmoving. He stared for minutes before deciding it was only a stump. But if one time it wasn't, would he even know until it moved?
Those two trees that split up there? You never know. Could look back up and that thing's gone. But it hasn't moved, so I'm gonna say it's a stump.
By nightfall, Mike ventured down a forestry road cloaked in darkness. His headlamp dimmed, the woods around him silent as stone. He let out a long whoop, hoping for a response. Nothing. Yet silence can carry weight, sometimes meaning something is listening. Out here alone, that thought lingered heavier than any sound.
Let's try to move over here.
The forest tested him in other ways. Old impressions half hidden in moss. Hollow knocks echoing faintly in the distance. Shapes shifting in fog. Each sign small, inconclusive, but together they painted a picture. He was not alone. Or at least it felt that way. After days of searching, he left without a direct encounter. But standing in the misty old growth of Oregon, Mike realized the search was never only about results. It was about the unknown, the patience, the feeling that at any moment the silence might break. In Mount Hood, Bigfoot remained just out of reach, but the mystery was alive, and the journey far from over.
Here. I first noticed this one. Just slightly, it's definitely faded, so it's not fresh. Here's a bit of a bigger one. It's like there's the size of my boot. You can see that right there. And then this one much bigger. It could be a track that just expanded over time.
Deep in the Monongahela National Forest, the crew of Beyond the Trail set out once more in search of answers. The nights here are long, cold, and quiet, the kind of silence where even the smallest sound carries weight. But what they captured on this trip would leave them questioning what exactly shares these woods with them.
Kind of catch it up here, but nothing came through that I've found so far. Review the video at faster replay speeds. So like right there is 32x. Helps us move through video much faster. And if something were to come through, you would see the heat.
Yeah.
At first, it was only the wilderness speaking. Wind, rain, even snowfall on the final morning near Spruce Knob. The team hiked through cliff ridges and stone formations, the vast forest stretching endlessly on both sides. Nothing unusual, just the challenge of weather and the beauty of West Virginia's backcountry.
Views on that side. We're up on the ridge, which means we're going to continue on, find some of these awesome rock formations. A little breezier up here than shielded by the backside of the hill there, but feeling great, feeling good, especially after that cold morning, waking up in the snowfall. This is a
But as evening came, their work began in earnest. They linked up with researcher Charles Kimbrough and set a thermal unit high on a ridge, scanning the laurel thickets below. It was a smart setup, a mobile recording station capable of running all night. Yet while the thermal remained quiet, the audio recorders told another story. Around 4 in the morning, a sharp sound cut through the silence. A single knock. Not natural, not random. Crisp, clean. Something deliberate. "That's a definite pop," one of the team remarked as they replayed the file. Another compared it to a wood strike. However described, the sound carried intention.
It's around 4 a.m., 4:20, somewhere around that area.
That's interesting.
But I can cut and give you the audio.
Yeah, that'd
if
be
you
great,
want.
because I mean, I just listened to it myself, and yeah, you can hear it. You could hear it too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fantastic sound. Honestly.
I can play it through the speakers.
Yeah, let's see if it might work. Yeah, that's pretty good.
As they studied the spectrogram, faint percussive blips appeared before the loud knock itself, as if something was moving, preparing. It matched, almost eerily, another knock they had captured days earlier over 40 miles away near Dolly Sods. Two separate areas, two nearly identical sounds. Could this be the same presence shadowing their journey? Or was it proof that this behavior, knocking, is part of something much bigger in these mountains?
Upon further review, this knock sound does not appear to be alone. This might be best heard via headphones, but pay attention to these blips that you see here on the spectrogram. There appear to be some kind of percussives or other sounds prior to the loud, very clearly audible knock.
The following day, more subtle knocks were reported. One hiker, sitting near camp, swore he heard a deep wooden strike echo from the ridge.
Today was good.
You guys thought you heard a knock?
Mike might have heard a potential knock in that direction, so that's where we started our hike.
Others captured faint but similar sounds on recorders around 1:30 a.m.
But it came kind of like from that way, and I remember I turned to see if anyone else noticed it, and
nobody else did.
Probably not.
And then you had mentioned you possibly got some knocks on your audio recorder?
Yeah, I'd like to listen to those actually when you have a chance.
I'd be really curious about that. Maybe we can compare them to the one that Charles got.
What time
were they in the morning? Do you remember?
Late, like between 1:30ish, between 1:30 and 2 a.m.
When compared side by side, the patterns aligned almost perfectly, too consistent to ignore.
Here's a comparison between the knock captured last night at this location and one of the knocks we captured near Dolly Sods a few nights ago, over 40 miles away.
By nightfall, the group split into teams, moving in opposite directions from camp. Audio recorders were left running. Calls and knocks were exchanged in hopes of stirring a response. The forest remained still, watching, waiting. The truth is, no one saw what made those knocks. No figure appeared in the thermal. No shadows crossed the firelight. But the audio remains. The sharp, undeniable crack in the night. In the words of the team, it was not natural. And so the question lingers. Was it wood on wood? Was it something else entirely? A mouth pop, a signal, a message? Or maybe, just maybe, it was a Sasquatch letting them know they were not alone. What do you think? Was this the sound of Bigfoot in the Monongahela? Or just the forest playing tricks in the dark? The team behind the Canna Creek Bigfoot expedition had already posted their field video when viewers began contacting them. Several followers asked them to highlight a specific section they believed showed a possible Bigfoot figure. Responding to the requests, the team revisited the raw footage, slowed it down, stabilized the image, and zoomed in to give a clearer view. This was more than just a curiosity. Shortly before filming the clip, they had documented what they believed to be compelling physical evidence.
This is the section in our expedition video that a lot of people contacted me on and said, hey, will you highlight this part of the video? I think I see a Bigfoot shape back there. And I think this is the part that they're pointing out. I'm not quite sure, but I took a screenshot and here it is stabilized.
In soft soil near the creek, they found a large footprint measuring 14 inches long and 7 inches wide across the toes.
Weird how the microphone wasn't working here. I don't remember turning it off. Well, anyway, we get down and measure it, and it's right around 14 inches long from the furthest back of the hill and the longest toe. And then the toe splay at the widest distance is right around 7 inches wide.
At the heel, just before it tapered, the print spread a little over 5 inches. The edges were clean, the soil deep enough to hold the impression, and at the front there appeared to be distinct toe marks.
And then down at the heel, just before it starts to taper, it's a little over 5 inches wide. And we didn't find any boot tread in there or anything, and it was really splayed at the top, which a boot or a shoe does not splay out 7 inches.
This was the best defined print of about a half dozen they had located that day. Most of the others were faint, but this one had stepped into perfect conditions for a clear measurement.
Actually, a human footprint is 4 inches wide, and with shoes and boots on, it's about 4.5 inches wide. So 7 inches wide up at the toes, and they did have indentations that looked like toes. Not saying it was Bigfoot. It's just Bigfoot shaped. It's deep. It's wide. And it's 2 inches longer than my boot track.
Near the footprint, they discovered more intriguing finds. A primitive-looking tool lay close to the prints, along with what appeared to be a basic structure. It was impossible to tell whether the object had been shaped or simply eroded by nature, but the proximity to the tracks raised questions. The team speculated aloud. Could a Bigfoot use such a tool for fishing, catching snakes, or digging? Or was it simply left behind by a person who had passed through long ago?
Here's the primitive tool that we found right near the footprints that were going down to the river. And we were trying to figure out what they might use this for, if it's actually, a Bigfoot tool. I mean, are they catching fish with it? Lizards, snakes, mice, squirrels? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. Maybe a person made it and left it here, but we did find Bigfoot tracks nearby. Okay, we're getting to the section that I wanted to highlight.
The video segment that drew so much attention began as the camera zoomed past one of the team members, Jenny, who was hiking ahead near the area where prints had been found. Beyond her, in a patch of shadow, the shape of something dark and upright appeared for a brief moment. Viewers believed it resembled a Bigfoot, broad, humanoid, slightly hunched. In the stabilized half-speed version, what could be the head seemed to jerk slightly to one side before vanishing behind the trees.
Although I'm looking for the clear open footage of Bigfoot and looking for evidence along the way, this is something I normally probably wouldn't make a big deal out of, but viewers that participate and help us get out there, they're asking for this, and so I decided to stabilize it and all of that so you could get a better look at it. I hope you guys enjoy our Bigfoot sightings, researching Bigfoot sighting hotspots across the Rocky Mountains and the Pacific Northwest.
Back at the print site, the team remeasured the impression. Again, it came out at 14 inches long, 7 at the toes, 5 at the heel. There were no visible boot treads or shoe patterns. Human feet, even in boots, rarely splay beyond 4.5 inches at their widest. This print spread 7 inches. Though the footage is not clear proof, the team presented it for transparency. Viewers asked for this, they explained. So we slowed, stabilized, and highlighted it. Canna Creek remains one of their active hotspots in the Rocky Mountains, a place where vocalizations, structures, and tracks continue to be reported. For now, the stabilized clip adds one more puzzle piece to the mystery walking along the creek. Footage courtesy. Cursed, urban. Have you ever stepped into a forest where silence feels heavier than sound? Where every tree seems to lean closer, listening, waiting. That's the mood inside what's known as the Bigfoot Forest, a stretch of woodland where strange structures, knocks, and unexplainable screams have been recorded. Dan, the creator behind Cursed Urban, returned to this place on an early evening in September. It was still warm, the air thick with the scent of leaves beginning to rot, the season slipping slowly into fall. He wasn't expecting anything unusual. This trip was more of a quiet walkthrough, a chance to see the land in daylight and study the tree formations he had recorded before. But like most encounters, the unexpected comes when you're least prepared.
Bigfoot hunting expert. I don't know much about this at all. So yeah, I usually get most of my info from the comments from people who were smarter than me in this subject, which is a while ago, and some people are saying that it could be a structure or a potential start to a structure with just how many interesting things have been accumulated.
Moving deeper into the forest, Dan noticed something he had missed at night. A tall tree angled into what looked like the start of a teepee structure. It didn't appear to have fallen naturally. The tree seemed carried, almost placed. In Bigfoot research, such structures are often debated. Are they shelters, territory markers, or simply coincidences of wind and gravity? Just minutes later, the silence of the woods shattered. A scream rose from the direction of the suspected structures. Not the call of an animal, not the sharp bark of a coyote, but something that sounded eerily human. Dan froze. He described it as if someone had yelled the word "help." That single cry shifted the calm exploration into a moment of raw unease. Driven by both caution and curiosity, he pushed forward.
That was like a human scream from that way. That was definitely like a human scream. Dude, and that's the way the structures are too. Let's get over there. That's literally the exact same way the structures are, and I just heard that. That sounded like definitely a person. It didn't sound like, it almost sounded like they said help or something.
The scream had come from the same area where he and a friend, Seth, once left offerings. Tinfoil coins that vanished, replaced by a neat pile of rocks. That exchange suggested intelligence, intent. And now the scream seemed to pull him back to that exact place. The forest grew heavier as he walked. Fallen trees blocked paths, their weight pressing into the earth as if shaping barriers. He called out, "Hello? Is there someone who needs help?" No answer returned, only silence, as if the woods swallowed his voice whole. At the structure site, he found more signs of disturbance. Bent metal fence pieces twisted with unnatural force. He tested the strength of the steel. It wasn't the kind of bend an average person could make by hand. Dan then tried a classic Bigfoot method, tree knocking. The crack of wood against wood echoed through the valley, and soon, from the direction of the river, came a reply, a knock, distant but deliberate.
Yeah, I saw these trees leaning over here, and that's kind of what I was really interested in. So what was going on here are creaking and whining under this wind. It sounded like a knock, but I'm not completely sure. Yeah, I'm getting paranoid because all these trees.
Could it have been coincidence? The wind? Another hiker? Or was something truly answering back? Moments later, an overwhelming stench of rot drifted across the trail, thick, sour, and then gone as quickly as it came. Veteran researchers often describe a foul, fleeting odor just before Bigfoot activity. For Dan, it was one more sign that he wasn't alone. So what do you think? Were those screams a cry for help, a trick of the forest, or the voice of something not entirely human? Footage courtesy, Hellbent Holler. Hellbent Holler is a two-person team dedicated to searching for Sasquatch and other unexplained phenomena across the southern Appalachians. Joe has spent 2 decades tracking Bigfoot in the American South, while Jesse Lee brings years of experience in paranormal research. Together, they combine traditional fieldwork with a tech-driven approach, taking recorders, thermal cameras, and drop mics into some of the most remote regions of Appalachia. One spring, they returned to a closed-down logging road deep in the mountains. A few weeks earlier, they had spent the night here, leaving recorders along the trail. On playback, they captured something chilling. Slow, deliberate footsteps, moving toward the microphone before fading away. This time they came back in daylight, determined to see if the activity would repeat.
We heard some interesting stuff, right?
Sounded like very heavy, slow, deliberate footsteps.
Kind of see if anything's changed since the last time we were here. And we're gonna see if there's any new footprints, any more like foot traffic through here, and just observe and see what's happened through here since the last time we checked it out.
The woods were strangely quiet. No bird song, no insect hum, just stillness. As Joe noted, the place felt dead, even under bright skies. The team set down another recorder in the same spot as before, ready to test the area again. Soon after, they found signs of disturbance in the moss. Small circular impressions dotted the ground, alongside patches where the forest floor had been pressed flat, as if something heavy had moved through. Then came something unmistakable.
You can see the moss has been pushed up. Because it looks like this moss, that is the roots of the moss. Looks like the moss was here. Yep, that's exactly how it was. And then it's been flipped up. So it's not necessarily a step, but...
See if you feel any impressions on the dirt. Anything?
I got one circular here and here.
A patch of scat filled with hair, lying near a large print pressed deep into the soil. The track showed clear toe impressions and measured about 11.5 inches, similar to medium-sized prints they had found during earlier visits. Jesse compared it to others they had recorded, small ones under a foot long, mid-sized tracks in the 12-inch range, and massive impressions stretching over 17 inches. The deeper they went, the clearer the evidence became. Fresh depressions marked the moss, showing travel corridors along the abandoned road. Soon, Joe spotted what he called plain as day, a perfect print with toes, a mid-foot break, and a solid heel impression. Tape measurement confirmed it, 11.5 inches, medium-sized, crisp in detail. The two realized they had now confirmed at least 2 sizes in the area.
Yeah.
All right, get the tape measure.
You got that.
Watch what I got here. Hold on.
Jesus.
Yeah. There's my big boy. Oh, yeah. There's a left print. Look at that.
Yep.
Same one, 17.5.
There you go.
Same one. All right, same one. Here's the big one.
But the moment that changed everything came just before dark. Moving toward a river bend, Joe's flashlight revealed a massive track. The tape stretched across 17.5 inches. The print was fresh, no more than a day old, with only a few pine needles lying on top. Moments later, another appeared close by, the same size and depth, left and right, proof of a very large individual.
Look back through here.
It's not even dark yet. Yeah.
Look right here. There's big prints back through here, big depressions all back through here. Right here, look right here. Let your eyes just kind of settle.
Yeah, I see it.
Right through there. Can you get that on camera?
It's camera and eyes are two different things, but...
Oh, it's mashed now.
What you got?
18 inches. 18 by about 6.5 at the middle.
As the sun dipped, the team felt watched. Strange noises echoed from the brush. A heavy, musky smell drifted across the path. Both Joe and Jesse admitted the sense of being inside something's home. Fresh, wet spots, not from rain or deer, appeared along the trail, as if something had been marking its territory. By nightfall, they had logged more prints, large, medium, and small, and the uneasy sense that multiple creatures might be moving together. For Hellbent Holler, the discovery ranked among their best. Fresh, undeniable evidence that something massive walked those mountains, leaving behind more than just tracks. Footage courtesy, Wild Man of the Woods. In the quiet back roads of Grimes County, Texas, lies the Twin Rivers Wolf and Wolf Dog Sanctuary. Run by Catherine Howell and supported by veteran Bigfoot investigator Jerry Mills, this refuge was built for rescued animals. Yet in recent years, it has become the center of a mystery that neither of them expected to face. Catherine often walks the grounds at night to check on the 46 wolf dogs. One spring, heavy floods left the soil thick with mud. While feeding the dogs one evening, she heard a scream so loud it shook the air. It echoed like a movie monster, sending every animal on the property into silence. Even the hungriest dogs froze and stared into the trees.
And I heard something scream so loud that it echoed and literally vibrated the air. And to me, it sounded demonic, but it kind of sounded like King Kong in the movie. And the dogs just instantly all stopped moving. They get really excited, you know, when it's time to get food, to be fed, and they all stopped and just stared back into the woods.
Over time, stranger things appeared. Decorative discs on the dog enclosures began disappearing. No one would dare step inside with so many wolf dogs, yet one by one, the discs were pulled loose and taken into the woods. Catherine and a volunteer named Amber then started finding massive footprints, 3-toed tracks with claws sunk deep into the wet ground. She sent photos to Jerry Mills, who had documented Sasquatch sightings across the South. His response was blunt: "That's Bigfoot territory." Soon, the evidence piled up. A resident volunteer reported her camper shaking at night. At first, she blamed horses roaming nearby, but rain left perfect prints at dawn. Long, tapered tracks, unlike anything she had seen. Hair samples with a coarse orange-tan color were later discovered, caught under the fifth wheel edge of the trailer. Jerry recognized the shape of the tracks from other regions: Falk, Arkansas, the setting of the legend of Boggy Creek, and Louisiana's Honey Island swamp monster. The same style of foot, the same long claws.
And their feet are shaped different. And these tracks match exactly the same ones out of Falk, Arkansas. And the movie that had the legend of Boggy Creek, what's the Boggy Creek monster, and the other track that was just exactly the same was picked up in Honey Island Swamp. They call it the Honey Island Swamp monster. And these guys had feet like that. So, you know, a squatch is a squatch regardless of what his feet, you know, so.
Then came the voices. Catherine and Amber stood outside one night when they heard 2 calls echoing back and forth from opposite ends of the woods. A week earlier, Catherine had heard what sounded like an animal being killed. Low waves of sound that vibrated through the trees. As the calls rose, the wolf dogs began a low, mournful howl, as if answering whatever was out there. Heavy cinder blocks Catherine had set at a gate to block a dog's escape were later moved aside overnight. More prints appeared, always in places no person should have been. Yet for all the strangeness, the woods never felt openly hostile. Catherine says she has lived there for years and never felt afraid. She simply wishes she could see what leaves the tracks. For Jerry and Catherine, the sanctuary has become more than a refuge. It is now a front-row seat to something unknown moving through the Texas night, a story still being written in footprints, howls, and hair left behind. They were never alone. Something stood just beyond the trees, still, silent, watching. The camera caught it first, a face, hidden deep in the cover, peering between 2 wide tree trunks during the Wairika Bigfoot investigation. No one saw it in the moment, not Johnny, not Duke, but frame by frame it appeared. A broad, domed head, dark hairline, skin mottled in gray and brown. The mouth, it moves, a grimace, then a slack expression, then what looked like a frown before the head pulls back and disappears. Watch this clip closely, right here.
Tracks, structures, and Sasquatch. One of the goals of the expedition was to film comparison footage at the location Jen, Duke, and Kelly captured of what appeared to be at least 2 Sasquatch watching them from cover.
That stare? Impossible to miss once you see it. They weren't just poking around blindly. Duke and Johnny from World Bigfoot TV were drawn to that exact slope by loud vocalizations from above. Same area where, weeks before, Duke, Jen, and Kelly had captured shadowy figures peeking from the brush. Johnny's lens swept the same trees, and in just under 4 seconds, in 25 tight frames, that hidden face was frozen in time. And the ground? It confirmed everything. Huge footprints, some up to 19 inches long, 8.5 inches wide, stamped deep into the hillside. 2 trackways, one headed downhill toward a creek, the other climbing up the steep terrain. Each impression crushed deep into the dirt, the toes, the heel, the way the weight drove it all down. Something massive had walked that path, nimble enough to scale, but heavy enough to leave craters behind. Take a look at this.
or longer. But yeah, whatever it was heavy as that went up right there. This one's about 19 inches in length. And you can see where one of the toes really...
You'll see the depth, the stride, the unmistakable marks of something far too large to be human. And it didn't end there. Not far from that site, on the next mountain range, Duke's team caught more than tracks. A wood knock echoed, then a face, staring from a small window in the foliage, just long enough to be seen before slipping away. The brow ridge, the dark eyes, the bulk of the head. It was there, just for a heartbeat. Watch this part.
I will link it in the description. The expedition group is investigating a large suspect Bigfoot structure complex. As the group walks off, this large Bigfoot wood knocks.
Blink and you'll miss it, but slow it down and that massive figure is staring right through the clearing. And then, the rarest capture of all, a Sasquatch, possibly caught in the act of wood knocking. Behind a leaning log, movement. A dark shape reaches, knocks, then hides again. See for yourself.
We'll show off some of the better 19-inch tracks we found in two separate trackways. One trackway went down the mountain toward the creek, the other went up toward...
One knock, one glance, then it's gone. They tracked them uphill, downhill. Footprints, vocalizations, wood knocks. The signs were everywhere. And that face? That moment Johnny unknowingly filmed a watchful Sasquatch hiding in plain sight. It sticks with you, so here's the question. How many times have we been watched in the woods, never knowing? Could these giants be watching from just beyond the trees, waiting for us to look the other way? They came for an overnight challenge, but something else was already there, watching. The ground was frozen, the air sharp and biting. Yet deep in the Canadian wilds, Mo Sargi and his team pressed on, unknowingly stepping straight into a forest locals whisper about, the Sasquatch Forest. Some call it the Yeti Forest, call it what you want, but something massive was stalking these woods. Not long after they arrived, Mo spotted it. Huge claw prints in the dirt, wide and deep. Nothing like a bear or wolf. Watch this part.
Yo, how did you find the tree, bro?
Bro, it's an entire tree.
Guys, I'm looking for Bigfoot right now. We heard the noises.
Oh, that's a deep claw print, bro. That's a big one.
This one too, this one.
Oh my god.
Right here. The size of those prints? Unreal. His hand barely covered half of one claw mark, and they weren't alone. More prints trailed off into the dark, vanishing into the trees. But instead of turning back, they built shelter right there, over a hollowed pit in the earth, a makeshift teepee of fallen logs, crafted fast as night crept in. The wind cut sharp, the sky darkened, and something stirred. Off camera, coyotes howled far off, but closer. Closer was heavier. Around 3 a.m., loud, heavy footsteps pounded near the camp, waking Mo from sleep. Not coyotes, not deer. Something big enough to shake the ground. See for yourself. Watch this clip closely.
Right here.
It's literally coming from all around.
What's over there?
You'll hear it, that distinct thump of weight crashing through the forest. Whatever it was didn't stick around, but the feeling of being watched never left. Morning didn't bring comfort, just more signs. As daylight bled through the trees, they spotted more claw prints in the frozen ground, lined up just yards from where they slept. Massive impressions, deep as if something heavy, something deliberate had paced right past their fort, while they lay vulnerable inside. Take a look at this.
Look at this one. This one's clearer.
Look at this
Are
one.
there any more? There's more?
This one's more perfect than the other ones.
The There's another one right there.
Another one right here too.
The tracks cut through the sand and ice, clawed deep and wide. Too symmetrical, too precise to be random. Mo's shock is clear. You can hear it in his breath as he tries to make sense of it. They counted multiple prints, spaced in a stride too wide for any human or known animal.
Yo, this is probably what we were hearing.
And there are these weird big claw marks on the ground. Look, there's another one. That's a deep one.
That one's really deep.
Holy, that's a deep claw print, bro.
The forest held its secrets, but the team felt it. Something had been circling, watching, deciding. Even the landscape felt strange. Patches of frozen ice beside green, mossy clearings. Like the forest itself shifted moods from one corner to the next. Their exit was clumsy, ice cracking underfoot, bridges of branches snapping in hand. Yet the unease never left. Mo even joked about logs looking like bears. But that's the mind's trick when it knows something's near but can't see it. One last glance back, one last stretch of frozen quiet, and they were gone. But the claw prints remained, fresh, precise, like warnings or an invitation. What creature stalked them that night? A massive unknown predator? Or the very legend of Sasquatch itself? You decide. Would you camp here knowing those claws passed inches from your shelter? Or would you run at the first sound? Let us know in the comments, because some forests don't forget who steps inside. Something was watching from the holler. Just beyond the pear trees, where the land dips low and the air hangs heavy, a footprint lay pressed deep in the earth. Not just any footprint, an old, weathered track molded into the ground like a silent marker of something still roaming these woods. 2 hours before the camera rolled, the cast went down, sealing the imprint before time could erase it. The excitement? Palpable. Every second spent waiting to lift the mold was a mix of anticipation and unease. See for yourself.
Came down and I plaster casted this. The reason that I do this, a lot of people don't, but I put sticks and stuff in because it's kind of like...
You can make out the arch, the spread of the toes, half buried in damp soil, waiting to tell its story. This isn't the first time. That stretch of land holds a reputation. Eyeshine flickers from the tree line at dusk. Low whoops echo back when the air turns still. Right up the slope, past the orchard, that's where the activity peaks. Night after night, eyes blink from the dark, reflecting the flashlight's beam. The old trail leading deeper in? More prints have been found along that path before. Watch this clip closely.
I've actually gotten a lot of stuff up in there. And down that little trail, I have found footprints. These are persimmon and pear trees, and this one's an apple tree.
The trees sway gently, almost as if hiding something just out of frame. Down by the apple and pear trees, it always seems to happen in spring and summer, as if the warmer air brings them closer. The prints, the sounds, the presence just past the edge of sight. And every time, there's that familiar pull to document, to preserve what little evidence remains before the forest reclaims it. That's why the cast was reinforced with sticks, like rebar in concrete, ensuring it holds together when pulled from the earth.
Just a little information on how to cast your footprints. And also when you do, you make it kind of the same consistency as you do pancake syrup.
A little trick to keep the story intact when others might crumble. But even before it's lifted, the shape is undeniable. Toes clearly defined, the curve of the foot captured in stone-like plaster. Once it's out, the details will pop, but already, the mind races. What was it doing here? Passing through or watching? The lower half of the property has always felt different, charged, as if the woods themselves know they're being observed just as much as they're hiding a watcher. Take a look at this.
Stuff, but here it is one more time. You can see back in here the toes. You'll be able to see it better once I pull it out of the ground.
The camera lingers on the cast, still wet, still fragile, but unmistakable in form. You can almost feel the gaze from the tree line, a heavy presence that never truly leaves. As night creeps back in, the mind can't help but wonder, will the whoops return? Will those eyes blink from the dark again? Or did the creature leave more than just a footprint this time? What would you do if you found a track like this on your own land? Would you dig deeper or run the other way? Deep in the heart of North Carolina lies the Uwharrie National Forest, a place where the pines grow thick, the nights turn pitch black, and the silence can feel heavier than the trees themselves. It's here, in this rugged, secluded wilderness, that Mike begins his latest journey, determined to uncover the truth about one of the most mysterious creatures on Earth, Bigfoot. The forest seems peaceful at first, the Baden Lake campground quiet under a blanket of stars. But Mike isn't here for peace. He's here to meet men with stories that could change the way we look at these woods forever.
Mike within the shadow of Big Red Eye here. Welcome to the Uwharrie National Forest. Might as well have some fun while we're out here. But anyways, all seriousness, or all jokingness aside, we're here for a serious reason. We're here for some library presentations, but we also got two witnesses coming at you that have been from the Uwharrie National Forest here.
The first is Lee Woods, a North Carolina investigator who has spent years studying the Uwharrie. As the fire crackles in the cool night air, Lee begins to tell Mike about a night back in 2010. A night he says he'll never forget. It was around 10:30 at night, Lee recalls, pointing toward the campsite where it all began. We were sitting right here by the fire, me, my son, Kenneth, and another guy named David. Then we heard it. Just one heavy wood knock.
It was me and my son and Kenneth and a guy named David. And we were sitting right here, and it was around 10:30 at night. Had the fire going, and nothing's changed. This spot looks just like it did then. Nothing's changed. And about 10:30, back over in that direction, which would be campsite number 5. It's right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
We hear just one heavy wood knock.
In Bigfoot research, wood knocks are often considered a form of communication, warnings, signals, or even territorial displays. For Lee, this one sound was the beginning of a night he still thinks about over a decade later. Moments later, Lee started walking back toward his truck. That's when everything changed. It was like I hit a wall, he says, his voice steady but serious. Like something just told me to stop.
My truck was sitting down here. My truck was sitting right there in number 10, which that picnic bench is at.
Okay.
And when I got right about between them two trees right there, it was almost just like I hit a wall. I mean, literally, it's like something just said stop.
I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it, like something was out there, watching me. For anyone who has spent time deep in the woods, that primal sensation, the feeling of being hunted, is unmistakable.
As I was standing there, I knew I could feel there was something out here. I could just feel it. So Ken hollered down here to me because I'd been standing here for about a minute and it was pitch black. And a lot of people don't understand when I say you can't see your hand in front of your face down here some nights. I mean, you can't even see the tree. It's pitch black. I couldn't even see you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm standing here.
Lee stood frozen in the darkness, unable to shake the sense that something was just beyond the tree line. He eventually retrieved his night vision and returned to the fire, but the uneasiness never left. Then his son Joe, standing with a parabolic microphone, suddenly stiffened. He motioned for Lee to come closer. When I put the headset on, I didn't hear anything at first, Lee explains. But then I heard it, breathing. Deep, heavy breathing, like something was struggling to catch its breath. It sounded just like a bear. That's what I thought it was at first, but it wasn't a bear.
He's standing here with a parabolic dish. He's standing like this right here. And about probably 15 minutes later, he's standing right here and he said, come here. So I come back over here, put it back in my ear, and just as soon as I put it back in my ear, straight ahead, right down through there, I hear, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And dude, he went, you hear that? And I said, yeah.
Yeah.
First thing went through my head again, bear. And I thought, oh my God, there is a bear down there. That's what I heard.
Minutes later, Ken caught something on his night vision. a figure standing near a large tree just beyond the campsite. Lee grabbed his own device, adjusted the focus, and there it was, a massive figure, towering, motionless, just watching them. The head was way up there, Lee says, holding his hand far above his own head to show the height. And then I saw it move, first behind the tree, then out the other side, back and forth, watching us the whole time. What struck Lee the most was not just the size of the creature, but the intelligence in its movements. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't rushing us. She was observing, leaning out slowly, showing a little more of herself each time, like she was letting us know she was there. Lee and Ken watched the creature for nearly half an hour. At one point, the figure turned slightly, and that's when they knew.
So I looked at the night vision, and just as soon as I picked that night vision up, she was there, and then I stood there and looked at her for maybe 20 or 30 seconds, and she went back behind the tree, and then she went to the other side. She leaned up on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Then she came back to this side, and she was going from one side to the other, leaning out. But every time she leaned out, you see just a little bit more.
You could see it was a female, Lee says. You could see her whole upper body, clear as day through the night vision. She was massive, thick shoulders, cone-shaped head, arms hanging low. And those eyes, they glowed green in the night vision. They were as big as the lens of a camera.
She came out and she turned like this right here. She turned real slow. And that's when we could see it was a female, because you could see the breast.
Right.
And you could see the eyeballs. That was one thing that I noticed right off the bat. Because through my night vision, it was kind of a greenish gray look. So
Yeah.
her eye was showing up green. And her eye was as big around as that lens right there on your camera. That's God's honest truth at that distance.
Wow.
Then, as suddenly as it began, the encounter was over. The figure walked slowly out of sight, disappearing into the thick foliage. And almost immediately, 2 loud wood knocks echoed from the nearby forest, as if signaling her safe departure. For Lee, the night confirmed what he had always believed. These creatures are real, intelligent, and never alone.
Right back down to number 5. 2 hits on a wood knock.
Oh, wow.
It was like they were letting them know she was leaving the area. And the one thing I've told people, and I'll say it again, the one thing that I will never forget is the way that it looked and the way that it moved.
Where there's one, there's two. Where there's two, there's three, he says. They travel together. They watch us just as much as we watch them.
And what was weird about that was I've always told people, where there's one, there's two, where there's two, there's three, and that is a fact. They never are alone.
From Uwharrie, Mike continues west to Asheville, another hot spot for strange activity. The Blue Ridge Mountains loom like silent sentinels, their misty slopes hiding countless secrets. But if Lee's story proves anything, it's that those secrets aren't staying hidden forever. This journey through North Carolina blends witness testimony, on-site investigation, and raw, unfiltered encounters. A reminder that some mysteries are closer than we think, waiting for those brave enough to step into the dark and look for answers. Footage courtesy, Wild Man of the Woods. In the quiet back roads of Grimes County, Texas, lies the Twin Rivers Wolf and Wolf Dog Sanctuary. Run by Catherine Howell and supported by veteran Bigfoot investigator Jerry Mills, this refuge was built for rescued animals. Yet in recent years, it has become the center of a mystery that neither of them expected to face. Catherine often walks the grounds at night to check on the 46 wolf dogs. One spring, heavy floods left the soil thick with mud. While feeding the dogs one evening, she heard a scream so loud it shook the air. It echoed like a movie monster, sending every animal on the property into silence. Even the hungriest dogs froze and stared into the trees.
And I heard something scream so loud that it like echoed and literally vibrated the air. And to me, it sounded demonic, but it kind of sounded like King Kong in the movie. And the dogs just instantly all stopped moving. They get really excited, you know, when it's time to get food. to be fed, and they all stopped and just stared back into the woods.
Over time, stranger things appeared. Decorative discs on the dog enclosures began disappearing. No one would dare step inside with so many wolf dogs, yet one by one, the discs were pulled loose and taken into the woods. Catherine and a volunteer named Amber then started finding massive footprints, 3-toed tracks with claws sunk deep into the wet ground. She sent photos to Jerry Mills, who had documented Sasquatch sightings across the South. His response was blunt: "That's Bigfoot territory." Soon, the evidence piled up. A resident volunteer reported her camper shaking at night. At first, she blamed horses roaming nearby, but rain left perfect prints at dawn. Long, tapered tracks, unlike anything she had seen. Hair samples with a coarse orange-tan color were later discovered, caught under the fifth wheel edge of the trailer. Jerry recognized the shape of the tracks from other regions: Falk, Arkansas, the setting of the legend of Boggy Creek, and Louisiana's Honey Island swamp monster. The same style of foot, the same long claws.
And their feet are shaped different. And these tracks match exactly the same ones out of Falk, Arkansas. And the movie that had the legend of Boggy Creek, what's the Boggy Creek monster, and the other track that was just exactly the same was picked up in Honey Island Swamp. They call it the Honey Island Swamp monster. And these guys had feet like that. So, you know, a squatch is a squatch regardless of what his feet, you know, so.
Then came the voices. Catherine and Amber stood outside one night when they heard 2 calls echoing back and forth from opposite ends of the woods. A week earlier, Catherine had heard what sounded like an animal being killed. Low waves of sound that vibrated through the trees. As the calls rose, the wolf dogs began a low, mournful howl, as if answering whatever was out there. Heavy cinder blocks Catherine had set at a gate to block a dog's escape were later moved aside overnight. More prints appeared, always in places no person should have been. Yet for all the strangeness, the woods never felt openly hostile. Catherine says she has lived there for years and never felt afraid. She simply wishes she could see what leaves the tracks. For Jerry and Catherine, the sanctuary has become more than a refuge. It is now a front-row seat to something unknown moving through the Texas night, a story still being written in footprints, howls, and hair left behind. The voices fade, but their stories remain. Ordinary people describing moments that changed how they saw the world. No legends, no embellishment, only quiet certainty. The wilderness still holds its secrets, and the mystery walks on. Each account adds another piece to the puzzle. And perhaps, the next voice to be heard could be yours.